Hello and welcome to Center of Spookiness, the very spooky podcast about very spooky stuff, but mostly it's about spooky TV episodes. And in this case, not that spooky, but spooky enough because we're in the spooky season. If you're listening to this when it drops, it is October, and that means Halloween is right around the corner. And you know that when Halloween rolls around, we got to make things a little spooky around here. I'm Spooky Josh, and joining me is Spooky Skinner. Hey, Skinner.
Hey, no Josh Goblin this year?
No, Josh Goblin is only for those real heads who know about our previous year's podcasting and the terrible ways that I tried to make this more festive and failed.
You're trying to get the casual audience now.
Yeah, we're talking to the new casual fans, the ones who aren't really into the they're one of their hosts having a creepy voice for part of it.
I mean, someone could like that. I don't know them, but
yeah,
yeah.
Maybe we'll see if I can remember how the Josh Goblin voice goes, and I'll break that out maybe before the before we wrap it up here.
Or you'll forget that we did this. And
yes, exactly. I won't remember at all. That'll probably be more likely what happens. But all that said, we are here to cover a bunch of spooky TV shows for the month of October, for Halloween month. We've done it the last couple of years, and we always have a good time doing so. And to kick off the haunted holiday season, we of course have to start with one of our favorites of the horror anthology variety, and that is of course Freddy's Nightmares, a series based on the Nightmare on Elm Street film series, loosely based, I'll say. Very much in the kind of Tales from the Crypt kind of vibe, or Twilight Zone. Very Tales from the Crypt, though. You have kind of a horror host who sets up these stories, and in this case, it happens to be Freddy Krueger. And though this episode that we're talking about now is a little bit different because we finally decided to go back to where it all began and cover the first episode, season 1, episode 1 from October 9th, 1988. So we are very close to an anniversary. I don't know exactly when this episode is out, but it will be very close to the anniversary of that episode's premiere date. So 36 years. Which is pretty crazy. So we're doing No More Mr. Nice Guy, the origin of Freddy Krueger. Basically, it's an episode detailing what we're told in Nightmare on Elm Street.
I mean, that's kind of how you would start the series, I would think. Like, you would go right in like, oh, here's Freddy, and then we'll be doing more of Freddy's, adventures as we went on, and like the rest of the series will be him picking off people that you see in this episode, except for it's not that at all. But I mean, this is a obvious launching point for the TV series in a way, but also I feel like it doesn't do almost anything with it.
Well, it's interesting because this came out in 88, so I'm trying to remember where we were in the sort of chronology of...
Well, Bartmania has not started yet, okay?
I was thinking in the chronology of the Nightmare on Elm Street film series, so it looks like...
do you think somewhere in the series he says, "Eat my shorts," and then shoves shorts into somebody's mouth, which then catch fire?
Wow, you know what? I would say yes. I would say that is very possible. So... 1988 was also the year that Nightmare on Elm Street 4, The Dream Master, was released. So this came out pretty close to then. I'm trying to look at the exact release date of this film. IMDb is a nightmare. Oh, this came out, the fourth film came out on August 19th. So about 2 months after is when this premiered. And then Nightmare on Elm Street 5... Dream Child came out in 89. So he was shooting this show probably concurrently with the first season, or he was shooting this show probably concurrently with Nightmare on Elm Street 4, and then probably shot the second season concurrently with Nightmare on Elm Street 5.
Do you think like the makers of the show were like, well, fuck that movie, we're gonna have 2 dream children?
Well, it's weird because like I feel like it's interesting because obviously they're trying, like, this was at the height of Freddy fever. Like I'm
gonna try to look up when the Nightmare on Elm Street video game for the NES that I bought at a secondhand store in Freeport, Maine came out.
Well, like Nightmare on Elm Street 3 was in 87. Like so like I think it feels like once Nightmare on Elm Street 3 came out, it was like you could not escape Freddy because you had something in 87. You had
a lot of people in the movies also could not escape Freddy. 1990, by the way, is when the
1990
NES
was
came.
the game. Okay. Freddy's Dead, the final Friday, I think that came out in 91. So you had in 87, you had Nightmare on Elm Street 3. In 88, you had Part 4. You had this show, Season 1. In 89, you had Part 5, Season 2, that ran into 90. And then you had the video game in 90. And then you had Freddy's Dead in 91, I think. So it was like inescapable. Freddy Krueger was an icon.
I feel like he was marketing for, like, here's the thing, like back, that was in getting into prime rental time, where everyone was getting had a VCR and VHS by this point, and like
for sure, or you could rent one for an expensive amount of money
in a metal case and give them a credit card. That's how I rented my first Super Nintendo and was wowed at how big the bullet bill was. But like what a marketing like boon for horror movies the horror aisle at the video store was, even the really mainstream ones, brightly lit one, because you could just, the covers were all fantastic, and it just felt like Nightmare on Elm Street was like royalty.
Oh yeah, it was for sure. I mean, the like, despite the quality of some of the films in the series,
I think the first one's fun.
The first one is amazing. Like that, if you've never seen the original Nightmare on Elm Street, watch the Nightmare on Elm Street. It's a great movie. It's
a fun one to watch. So like, these movies made their money and their legacy on rental, and
for sure.
But like, and like, you don't think of them as a theater experience anymore. But like, Deep in Bear Countries, I think I've mentioned before, Phil and I had gone to a Halloween showing of the first movie in a small indie theater, and like, fucking what a great time. I've seen it. Like that, the soundtrack alone in a theater, with all the sounds and is so much fun. Also, you really get a sense in a theater of how small and goofy Robert Englund is in that movie when he's just doing his little dance with his arms.
Yes,
he's just a little guy. He's just a little guy.
I love that. I love that scene because it's kind of silly, but it's also the perfect level of like silly, but also kind of unnerving and unnatural because your arms shouldn't look like that.
Yeah, I think he was still kind of figuring out, like, is this guy a badass or is he kind of like a wacky nut?
Yes, the first one, it definitely, he is quipping for sure, but it's not the way that it is in later movies, and that tends to be kind of how some of these series go.
I understand, like, the remake version of it when did turn people off, but like, and people love the quips. I mean, like, I'm not sure he'd be as famous without the quips, but you can see from that first movie, like, there's a version of this where he becomes very serious.
Yeah.
And it's equally cool. Like, it's equally interesting as like a character who's like very deranged, but not funny. But also the dream rules will never make sense. Like, so also trying to make them make sense is a fool's errand.
Very true. We kind of get a little bit of that in this episode. But yeah, so we were in knee deep in Freddy fever. I had forgotten about the the NES game.
It
That
was
was
4
something.
players.
Was that like a specific thing? Was that like Dream Warriors or something, or
Well,
was
kind
it?
of, yeah, it was more Dream Warriors because like you play as 4 players and you would start in daytime in a house, which is a big, of course, platforming level. And then you would collect items, and then when it turned in, the timer went and it turned into the dream world because you fell asleep. You could become a ninja, a gymnast who could throw a javelin, a wizard, and something else.
Okay.
And that made you more powerful because you were some sort of dream warrior. Also, it's kind of open ended, and I could never figure out. Me and my friends, I'm sure, tossed the manual immediately. Never figured out what the fuck we were supposed to do because it wasn't just straight. Like you're supposed to go to certain houses and certain. You're on a street and there's houses along the way, and like you're supposed to go to certain ones and collect like certain things in order. Which, as a kid, every NES game tried to do that. That had like ambition. Also, impossible to figure out. No one like same as the Friday the 13th game. Like you can beat that game in 40 minutes if you know what, or less if you know what you're supposed to be doing. Also, no one knew what they were supposed to be doing.
Yeah, we had this conversation. We're not the first to obviously talk about it, but while we were hanging out together, when we recorded our previous episode, go back and listen to that one if you haven't already. Kind of a jumping off point to the spooky season. We talked about the Friday the 13th series, so go back and listen to that. But we were talking about the sheer number of 80s extremely violent properties that became video games for kids. And this is, of course, just another, in a long line of them. I mean, there were Friday the 13th games. There were, Terminator games,
Aliens.
Yeah. So it's
Rambo cartoon, Toxic Avenger cartoon.
Yeah, it's such a great time to have grown up where you got these things that were clearly for adults, but like it wasn't that big of a deal. It seemed like people were just like, yeah, whatever, who cares?
Like, no, I mentioned this 1,000 times. So I have 1,000 kids from that age group because I'm 46 now. My parents had no problem with me watching RoboCop.
Yeah,
because RoboCop was famous. RoboCop, a guy melts from bullets.
Yeah.
Like, yes, it's a parody. It's very funny. It's a brilliant film. As a kid, you don't really get that. You just see people just getting fucking maimed.
Yeah. It's interesting. And that wasn't, I realize that it sounds like I'm saying like, people today are too sensitive and we got to get rid of woke or whatever, but that's not my point. It's just,
no, it should be our point because our show doesn't get a lot of listeners and maybe they
that's right.
would.
We're going to make a hard right turn here.
A hard right turn
in the Halloween episode.
I mean, my online my online stuff, I'm getting a lot of likes and stuff with being a normal person. I'm not getting a lot of followers or money.
Oh, that's what it is. You gotta change it up. But also, it would
gone broke.
It would make sense to go hard right with this particular episode of the show because it's very much about like cops are good and they're not supposed to do bad things, but they do. So it's like you kind of see all these like arguments.
It's funny that it became like, so the whole point, not the whole point, but like, the point of like the killing of Freddy by mob justice, and they do have that in this, and him getting off on a technicality, which is what the whole, that is the plot of of both the movie and the reboot and whatever. Mm-hmm. But like, it's always like the parents came after him and he has to come back and kill the children of the parents because he's mad about dying and blah, blah, blah. And he'll get revenge. This one, he's happy to die. That's one. But like it becomes more about the one good cop, like the cop whose technicality got him free, how he felt and whatever, which is interesting because that is, you could go that in a much, much, much better written and acted show, do the whole thing of like, how would you feel as the cop whose technicality let Freddy free?
Killer free, yeah.
And not just any killer, but a child killer. And once again, this show, he's a child killer, and there are hints that it's more than just violence.
Yeah.
But like, I don't know, there's just something about it becoming like the internal, like, what does it mean to be a cop? Where I'm like, he could just like sprinkle some cocaine on his burnt corpse after and go like, he was lighting up and caught himself on fire, high as a kite on goofballs. And then like, that's it.
Yeah, this premiere episode, which it's a little bummer because like I guess there are moments where the show looks good, like this episode in particular looks interesting with some of the shadows and like
it'll never look this expensive again, but it doesn't look expensive.
No, it's a TV show budget, so obviously it's a little cheaper, but it's directed by Tobe Hooper, who made many a film, including what I think is probably one of my favorite movies of all time, which is the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I know that's weird to say, but that movie is incredibly intense. And like, again, if you've never seen Texas Chainsaw Massacre, see that fucking movie. Maybe you're lucky enough that in your town they're doing like some repertory screenings for Halloween. They are playing that somewhere. If you have a chance to see that in the theater, go see it in the theater. If you have a chance to see Nightmare on Elm Street in the theater, like around me, here in Milwaukee, they're doing a couple of different theaters are doing some rep screenings, and Nightmare on Elm Street's on there, which it's a great movie to see in a theater. So like, do yourself a favor, look around your local, your local area, and if you have any kind of like old rep theaters, see what they got going for Halloween. Because
a lot of these soundtracks for these movies come across so much better in a theater.
Yeah, like and you get the audience interaction and like
and also like if you're gonna, another suggestion, if you're going to have a child that you think is gonna become a basketball player, name them Tobe Hooper. And possibly the best name you could have as a basketball player.
But anyway, so
Tobe
Hooper directs this, which is great, and of course because it is an official Freddy Krueger show, we get Robert Englund in the cast, which is pretty cool. We start in a very interesting way because we've talked about Freddy's Nightmares before on Center of Spookiness, excuse me. And the show, at least in the past, from what I remember, opens with like a newspaper headline that is talking about Freddy getting out on a technicality. I think there's a sub article or something that says something about like the lottery numbers or somebody wins the lottery. But you kind of get that like news thing where it's kind of giving you the briefest understanding of what the story is. But this episode begins with what I think is supposed to be a fake out for the audience. Like, I think the audience is supposed to think that there is an actual breaking news update that is coming on that they need to pay attention to, because the guy's talking about like the anchor is talking about like a double murder, and he's talking about some hostages at a bank robbery, and then suddenly he starts to fuzz out of existence, and then you realize like some claws go through the screen, and you realize, oh no, this is not an actual news broadcast. It's a Freddy Krueger show. And
then it goes to color blocks for a color test thing.
Yes, but they're his striped sweater design, red and green. And he says that this is it's not your, he's like, don't worry, it's not your nightmare, it's mine.
And where this is a serious story to Fred Krueger. I love it when he's called Fred Krueger in the first movie.
Yeah.
And he's called Fred Krueger, the court case here as well. I like, usually in these episodes, the later ones we watch, especially ones that don't even have him in it, he does interstitials.
Yes.
Where he'll like at the start, he'll do his little story and make a little quip. And then from the rest of the episode, every time they go commercial, he'll rip through the screen and he'll freeze frame on him or something.
Yeah.
Or he'll make another quip. None of that in this one, because he's telling his tale. Like, he's in the episode enough where he doesn't need to come into the episode to tell you, by the way, this is a Freddy Krueger show.
Yeah, exactly. He doesn't have to,
though he is pre-burnt for most of the episode and in shadows. Like,
yeah, they do a pretty good job of avoiding showing his face unburned.
Him and Wilson.
Well, it is very funny that our main character, our cop's character's name is Tim, and you have this guy constantly trying to his partner trying to constantly, like, assuage his guilt over what he does. And
I would love if, like, it's too early. I don't know if it's too early, but like, if he's down in the boiler room, you hear all these like boiler room sounds, and you're boom, 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 what? Or like when he starts to kill him with the spoiler alert dentist stuff, which comes out of fucking nowhere. He goes, I guess we're gonna have to clean your teeth with more power.
Well, I mean, it's kind of connected because we've got all these like fancy wipes that are happening with Freddy Krueger cutting through the screen or pushing books out of a shelf or something, very much like a home improvement improvement wipe.
When he kills Krueger and sets him on fire, and Krueger's super happy, he should be like, "You finally, you're me gone." And he's like, I don't think so, Tim.
But like, so Freddy says it's his nightmare. Then we cut to outside, like this, Springwood courthouse, and the anchor that we just saw fuzzes back into existence. And someone walks up, like a tech guy walks up and gives him a microphone and a piece of paper, and then he starts doing a broadcast. And I was like, wait, is this is a dream, right? Like all of this is a dream because this is crazy.
And he's never back again. He doesn't question, like, he's like, this is very confusing. And then the person he just goes into professional mode. Like, I would not get past the fact that I just transmuted from one spot to another.
I thought that they might have like brought that back at the end, or brought it back like when we switched over to what reality was, because Freddy's Nightmares, they already had this format nailed down where they have one story at the beginning, and then someone from that story is the main character in the second story. In this case, it's kind of the same main character, but like you focus more on another character, or you focus on another aspect of that character in the second part of the episode. So they kind of already had that format nailed down here. But it's still very jarring to see that like the newscaster guy kind of come into existence, but then is never mentioned again. And so it's like, Freddy said this is his nightmare. So is this him dreaming? Like there's weird moments where you don't know if a thing is supposed to be real or if it's supposed to be a nightmare.
The end is the worst part because they set it up like all these people who everything interaction he's had in the last little while is now unreliable.
Yes.
But when we finally break out of the dream, it feels like everything was real up until like 5 seconds ago.
Yeah, we'll explain. So,
but also, I never got an explanation for why during the newscast there's an underlying constant ticker tape sound, because that's not what happens in the news. They may have had ticker tapes back in the 50s. They didn't play it over the soundtrack of them reading the news, especially in '88.
We've got a reporter out in the field. Go ahead, Barbara. Can you speak up? I can't hear you over the ticker tape. But anyway, so Freddy, we see him inside the courtroom, and he is his face is obscured by a glare on this like Hannibal Lecter style cage that they have him in. It's like a big metal box with glass windows, and the defense is, or not the defense, I guess the prosecution is reading off all of the crimes that Freddy's committed, showing pictures of all of his victims. And Freddy's lawyer, who is super greasy looking, his defense attorney, he's got like all these rings on and like big curly hair. And he stands up and he moves for the case to be dismissed due to the fact that the arresting officer, Tim Blocker, did not properly read Fred Krueger his rights when he was arrested. And the judge is like, well, my hands are tied. If you had read him his rights properly, we'd be sending him away forever. But you didn't, so I guess he gets to go free. And they just unlock him and unshackle him in the courtroom in front of everybody and just let him wander out past the entire audience. Like it seems like that seems like a bad choice. Don't do
Especially
that.
When before he was being held in court in hand shackles, wrist shackles, and a shark cage.
Yes, like he's in a metal box with chains on. Like they're taking the utmost security, and they're like, well, it was a technicality, so he's got to go. Like it feels like he still like he did all these things. They're not saying that he didn't kill all of these children. They are saying that like because you didn't arrest him properly,
you would set up another trial.
Yes, there would be like it would be a mistrial or something. But like there would still be another trial. Like that he wouldn't. It's weird that they're just like, no, he's free to go. Like,
well, it's not a serial killer who, who's basically cackling about how much he loves to kill children.
Yeah, like you didn't sign this form. You didn't sign and date this form properly. So we got to let Jeffrey Dahmer out.
I mean, he is a white guy, but he's not rich.
That's true. He lives in a boiler room. He lives in an old factory.
He lives in a nuclear bunker at an oil factory. There's some real choices about Fred Krueger in this episode.
Yes, he's dressed in his signature outfit with his hat.
They give him back his hat when he is freed.
Yeah, he has it in the cage with him, and I thought at one point he ripped the hat in half, but I think he just like pulled it away from his hands. But the hat is intact, and he is able to just wander out of the courtroom with no problems whatsoever. And this is when we kind of get introduced to Tim Blocker, who was the cop who arrested Fred Krueger when he was standing over the bodies of his daughters,
who he's about to kill or do worse to. One is now catatonic, and the other one is a snitch.
And it feels like he didn't. He obviously did not kill Freddy when he had the chance. And because he is on the right side of the law, he tries to do the right thing.
Yeah, he's from New York City, and he was tired of evil 1980s New York and came to a small town where the law matters because the law doesn't matter in New York, and the cops can't do anything. They can't simply shoot you for fair hopping and then shoot each other in the crossfire. But I like that the other parents are both angry that he fucked up the arrest and angry that he didn't kill them either. So like they're like, why couldn't you do your job properly? He's like, I tried to do my job properly. That was the problem. And they're like, you did everything wrong. And they had really bad acting screaming at him.
Yeah, we also see at this point, this is the first time we see Freddy Vision, which is like just taking the posterize filter and putting it over the footage, so everything kind of has like a thick outline and sort of like it's compressed down to 6 or 7 levels of different colors.
So why are they doing this?
I don't know. I think it's to distance us from him even more, to show that he is an inhuman monster.
He seems in this version he seems very aware that he's going to become a wizard when he dies.
Yes, he's going to become some sort of otherworldly demon. Now, I don't think that I have seen Freddy 5.
Freddy got fingered?
I don't think that I've seen the Dream Child. I know some of the lore, but I don't know if at any point, and I don't remember all the intricacies of this series, which I was thinking like maybe this would be a good rewatch over the October season. I think rewatch all of them,
since it's our new signature series besides Erie, Indiana.
Yeah, it could be fun to rewatch the entire Nightmare series. I don't remember much about some of the later movies, so it would be fun to revisit. But I don't know if at any point in those movies it reveals that like he knew what was going to happen to him.
He'd been Kenobi'd basically in this one.
Well, yeah, but like I wonder if they introduced that bit of lore, like, oh, I knew that if I got set on fire by these people, it would allow me to go into, like, I was doing weird mystical shit that allowed me to like astral project, and if I died, then I would become like an entity, and I could do all, and like they're trying to bring that into the show's lore as well.
Yeah, like he basically becomes a dark side Force ghost.
Yes, exactly. Like I don't know if they did all that and if that's what they're trying to do here, but yeah, it very much seems like he knows that if I die, I will be, if you strike me down, I will become more powerful than you could ever imagine.
One of the girls straight up says it. Like you took it
Yes.
as you took it as she was saying like it'll be worse for you if you kill him.
Yes.
No, it's
but
very clear that she meant that he would become a Force ghost.
Yeah, after seeing the rest of the episode, yeah, it definitely
But
seems.
why would what did he do to her that he's so traumatized before he dies that she is aware of his powers?
Yeah, it isn't really. They don't really give us much on that. Like
it makes sense. Like once he's dead and can go into dreams, and maybe he went into her dreams and is fucking with her. But like,
yes,
like I get that she's catatonic. She almost died from this guy who turned other kids into butter. But like, like I don't understand why she has a psychic connection to him already and knows that if he dies, he'll become super powered. We do like the posterizing thing is really weird. I get it that it's kind of like, so you're looking from Freddy's perspective.
I think that's mainly what it is, and it's also too. I think later when we see him in his sort of torture chamber at the oil factory, the refinery, it's so that they can show kind of more gnarly stuff, but without like upsetting censors, because they show like some gritty, gross looking like saw blades, and like
we see one of the women later pick up something generic, but apparently it's something from her kid.
Yeah,
she loses her shit. I mean, they do show a little bit of blood. It is a little bit more like the movies, but it's still pretty like I couldn't imagine a single person watching this and finding it scary.
No,
it's clutching a blanket.
It's pretty tame. I would say,
plus know what's going to happen from the second it starts.
Yeah, it's pretty tame for because of it's a TV show, so it has to be. But
I do like the one time they go to Freddy Vision when he's outside the house and it's gone red now, but he also hears like constant screaming.
Yes, that was what I was going to say. Like they give us a little more details every time, and yeah, one of the last ones we get is where he is outside Tim's house looking in at his daughters, and he's just constant screaming.
I like that idea a little more of like he's gone crazy because in his head he's just absolutely just driven mad with like the screams and everything.
Yeah,
like he's so evil, like. But he's still, even before death in this, he's kind of like, I love to murder. Murder is so great. I can't wait to murder. Gonna murder them all. And like, he's just like, I believe in the movies, like he gets off and he's like, hey, I'm going to go leave town because I got off free and I'm going to continue killing outside of the city. I'm going to go upstate or something, but I'm leaving because I don't want to get caught. And this, he's like, I'm going to go right back exactly where they want to kill the girls, exactly who they think I'm going to kill. And I can't wait to die. Like he literally gets killed and goes, I'm free. He's supposed to be angry that he's dead because he's targeting specifically these parents' kids. Like, and the parents won't tell anyone that they killed him. So everyone's like, why are these specific kids in town being targeted? In this one, he's just like, I can't wait to die. Dying will be great.
I'm guessing that like,
he should do a musical. He should do a musical number is what I'm saying. But since it's 1988, it should be a white guy rap and go hip hop, hippity hop. I love killing and I can't stop.
Well,
like
I think Freddy does rap in some of the later ones. He might rap in Freddy's Dead. I can't remember.
If every serial mascot has to rap at some point during 1985 through 1993, I think also Freddy had to rap.
So Freddy gets out. Obviously, the crowd, the people who were there assembled in the courtroom who are upset by this verdict. They determine that they need justice on their own, and they can't wait for him to kill again because they know he's out there looking for another victim. We do get Freddy back at his hideout wandering around. He gets his ice cream truck that he apparently drove around to abduct children. And I don't remember that part from the lore either. So that would be interesting to see if he's in an ice cream truck. I think he is in one of those movies. I have not seen them in so long. I do need to revisit because it's I want to get this right.
About Spawn. And
maybe I am thinking
violator.
about that, but anyway, so he gets his ice cream truck back. He goes back to his hideout and gets all of his murder instruments and his knife glove. He says he's ready to have some more fun, and he wants to. I can't really, because we're looking at it through his Freddy vision, I can't really tell what he's looking at. It looks like a giant, like one of those giant saws that you cut down trees with, but he's like, we're gonna feed you some meat, and so he seems very excited about killing again. And you know, Timothy, our lieutenant, he's upset about it all. You know, his wife is like, you know, you said we were going to move here and it was going to be safer. We, you know, back in New York with 18 locks on our doors, and this is before, you know, Rudy went in and cleaned up that city, I guess. And you know, he goes off to work, and we see the crowd kind of rallying up at the refinery. They kind of wander through, but Freddy is all gone, and they realize that he must be out. You know, he must be back in town, looking for victims.
He could be just going for dinner, like he wanted some like Raising Cane's or something.
That's right. Yeah, he could be getting some food. They don't know, but they assume the worst, and they are right, because Freddy is back in town. In fact,
guess who's back?
back again. Timothy has put some guards outside of his house, one particular cop named Lou, and to make sure that nothing goes wrong. And of course, Freddy shows up and murders Lou.
I'm surprised, like, because Tim's wife comes out and gives him some fried chicken.
Mm-hmm.
I'm surprised, like, she didn't invite him in for some like intimate time.
Well, I mean, based on what we know about her, that seems like it would have fit.
That is the weirdest thing that never paid off as to why. We'll get to it, but like, we're talking about things of like what was real and what wasn't. The fact that was supposed to just be her character becomes more and more confusing.
Yeah. So this cop gets killed. We do get actually like a decent bit of blood here. He's holding a paper plate with some fried chicken on it, and Freddy shows up and slashes at him, and we see the paper plate fall into pieces and blood fall down on top of the chicken, which is like kind of an interesting little thing, visual. And the mob shows back up at the house, looking for him. And he is somehow able to, they find his ice cream truck out in front of the house, and then they look for him, but he's able to escape somehow and get into that rickety old ice cream truck and drive away without anyone noticing.
Yeah, that's the most preposterous thing in the whole episode. Besides the blowjob.
It's a weird thing, because there's like, it's constantly like going back and forth. They go to the refinery, he's not there. They go to town, he's not there. They go back to the refinery, they're looking for Freddy, then he's there at the refinery. So like everybody ends up back at the refinery,
and they just continue the scene which could have happened earlier.
They could have done it in one scene, but they had to have him like create a body count. And I don't even know if they ever mentioned that, like, oh yeah, he killed a cop. Like, that enough is like,
no one's upset about Lou dying.
No, everybody hated Lou. They're like, fucking good riddance.
I mean, they posted him at the most dangerous place possible.
They're like, the guy won't fucking retire, so we have to figure out a way to get him off the force.
He's really, you know, the medical plan is getting really expensive. He has a lot of pre-existing conditions at his age.
He makes our life so difficult.
He just won't eat healthy. He just refuses to.
Constant complainings.
Yeah.
So they finally show up here, and they're one of the guys, I think this is Deeks, right?
Yep.
Robert Deeks, played by William Frankfather, which I love that name. And he shows up. He has a shotgun. They're looking for Freddy. Freddy appears out of the mist and says, like, as like an old 40s gangster, "You think he was gonna get rid of me?" And they're about to shoot him, but of course Tim shows up, and he's like, you know, no, we have to do things right. And back at the station, his pal Gene was like, it's okay to like, he's like, I don't want to break the law. And he's like, sometimes you can bend the law a little bit, not break it.
And in fact, that's what the court case was. The problem was he bent the law a little bit, and
it didn't work out for him. So they all are standing there. The mob is facing down with Freddy. Tim is kind of in between them, basically saying like, we need to stand down. We need to do this right. And Freddy, of course, just laughs and he's like, I didn't get to know your daughters too well the last time, but maybe they'll like me better next time. And it's just like, all right, dude, like he clearly knows like I need to get killed. But I wonder if there is, and maybe this will come from looking at, the other films or whatever, but like, I wonder if he knew that it had to be done a certain way. Like if he just shot him in the head, would it have worked? Did he have to be burned alive in order to come back as a dream demon? Or could it be any sort of murder of any kind?
He has to be doing a way that like, if he got shot in the face, he'd be stuck with a face with a hole in it for the rest of time. Because he never gets rid of the burns.
Yeah.
So, he was just kind of like thinking it through.
Maybe it didn't matter. Maybe it was just like one of those things. It doesn't really matter as long as I have my knife glove on and so that I have something to kill with in the dream world. That's all I need.
And I have a magic ring in my pocket that I bought, in India, because this is 1980s.
So so this is when Tim throws out this great line: "The law is the law, but tonight it's on vacation."
Sucks. He's a terrible actor. It's very funny.
And he ends up pouring gasoline all over Freddy. And
we have to mention like he's not like he's got Freddy tied up.
No, this is the weird thing. It's like, it's not because also it's constantly being talked up as like mob justice. The mob did this. They hunted Freddy down. They like ambushed him and did all this stuff. And they did all this together. Tim is doing everything. No one else is doing anything.
He does it all himself. Freddy's like, "Hey, cool, you missed a spot." Like literally, he says that.
Well, it's funny because like Freddy is getting into it. He's like, Tim grabs the can of gasoline and pours it all over him.
Maybe part of the magic was he had to like die from fire, hard as a rock.
that has to be what it is, because he is like, he's absolutely loving it. He's like, yeah, that's right. I'm thirsty. Pour it all over me. Don't miss anywhere. Give me all of it. Give me every drop of gasoline. And it's like, wow, he's chubbing up as he's getting ready to get set on fire.
He could kill one of them or two of them while he's standing there, but he just sits there. He just literally stands there like 1 foot in front of Tim and just lets him kill him.
Yes, and then we get a great shot of a guy who's clearly covered in like fire retardant gel and a mask, and as he gets set on fire, and we hear Freddy say like, "I'd rather burn up than fade away,"
because he's fucking Kurt Cobain.
He's an 80s rock star. And speaking of 80s rock stars who burn up and come back, check out Trick or Treat from, I think, 1986. Great movie. If you've never seen it, it's very silly. I think it's Trick. Let's see, Trick or Treat. There's Trick or Treat from
Star Trek Williams.
No, there's Trick or Treat from 2007. Also a great Halloween movie to watch if you've never seen it. Nice little anthology film. But Trick or Treat from 86. Great movie. This teen boy is like bullied, and he has this like this idol, this heavy metal star who set himself on fire and like comes back as like a weird demon through a record. That was the big fear, that you were going to play your record backwards and satanic messages were going to come out. That's what this movie's about. Great movie. It's very silly. There's a lot of very silly things, and it's that hallmark of 80s movies where bullies wanted to murder the kids that they were bullying, like without question. Like they would have committed murder if they could have. Great movie. Everybody should check that out. Very, very kind of Freddy Krueger-esque. A little bit. Like there's some elements that are very very similar. But anyway, so Freddy gets burned up, and we cut back to the Freddy we know and love, and he's like, "That was then. this is now. And he cuts himself open and a bunch of just like green goo falls out.
Just Nickelodeon gack.
Yeah, this is where they got the idea. No, wait, GAC was around by 88, right? Because you can't do that on television, and all of that was on the air, I think, at this point.
We'll talk about it in our GAC episode. Our entire episode dedicated to GAC.
But we then cut into the next sort of story, where this is dealing with Tim and his kind of guilt after what happened with the mob and with Fred Krueger. He is kind of in a dream because we see the outside of his house, but it's all boarded up, and there's like red and green theatrical lighting and smoke and fog. So this is clearly the dream world, yet they still have delivery men because a guy comes and brings a box and puts it on his porch. This box is, of course, striped, just like Freddy. And he goes outside and picks up the box, and a glove pops out and grabs at him and scratches his face. And he wakes up, of course, in his own bed, and his wife tries to comfort him. Says, "Oh, you've been having nightmares again."
This is where I first noticed that she seemed horny, and I don't think you believed me.
No, I think towards the end of the scene, it was very clear that's what was happening. Because
her hands were under his shirt,
yes,
and her eyes were half lidded, and she just was like talking to his ear. He like was not into it at all. Like he wasn't like reciprocating in the slightest. But it was like, I'm like, why is this being played like she's horny?
Yes, she's seems very into him, and it's even more so in later scenes. But
I think it's clearly the idea is that she wanted him to do rogue justice. He did it, and it really worked for her.
That's right. She wants a vigilante husband.
It really, 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 because she like the next time it happens, that's how she starts talking about it. Like,
yeah, she's like, put your Punisher outfit on.
Yes. Oh God, just go up my thin blue line.
I was wondering. I was trying to figure out how to work that in there. I was going to go the opposite way, that he had a thin blue line, and but yeah, it works. It works either way.
Yeah, I mean,
it's vile no matter what.
It's very vile.
But like, so he looks in the mirror after this, after he rebuffs his wife's advances. After she tells him like it wasn't a person, it was an evil entity.
Which gets her going.
Yes, exactly. Just like Freddy is getting off by being set on fire, she's getting off by thinking about a guy getting set on fire.
She wants to be set on fire.
That's right. And he looks in the mirror and he has some slight scratches on his face. So
which he has the rest of the show, and no one ever comments on it.
He doesn't seem too concerned. He takes his daughters to school, Lisa and Merritt. And Merritt is the girl, the daughter who is catatonic. She's like apparently been through so much trauma that she just doesn't really talk that much anymore. Seems very distracted and very distant. And it's very funny because he still makes her go to school, which is interesting. Like it feels like you would have her like Lisa says that she sees the school guidance counselor twice a week, but it feels like you need to be in a like for real therapy like situation with maybe a caregiver and like like a constant therapy appointments. Like she's not in school for a little while. Like give her some time, and maybe the idea is that like, integrate her back into her friends and hopefully that'll help, but
not this way.
But
not like,
but it seems not to be working.
Two times a week to be told like, you'll go see a therapist, school therapist twice.
A guidance counselor. They don't care about that. They want you to get into a college. That's all they care about.
Right. And like the rest of the time you have to sit there catatonic in like chemistry lab.
Yeah, it's ridiculous, but it's very funny because he seems like a very like distracted, kind of not informed dad, because he kind of looks at her and he looks past her towards Lisa and he's like, is she mad at me? You're just like, no, dude. She was almost murdered.
Yeah, like the amount of insensitive dad there is pretty high.
Yeah, it's really funny. But he goes into work and he gets a note that basically says in blood red letters, "I'm burning in hell. Wish you were here." And then the note ignites in flames in his hands, and it seems like moderately put off by it.
Yeah, like once again, like if that happened in your real-time life where magic doesn't exist, you may go like fuck for more than a few seconds. Like when the next person comes to talk to you, you might mention it. Like, did you see something catch fire in my hands and then disappear?
Yeah, no, but then this is when you start to question, like, is any of this like real? Because Gene is talking to him here, and like
he's talking about how the feds are going to come and arrest, come and try to find and take over the case on Fred Krueger, and Tim freaks out because he immediately cracks and tells him that he killed Krueger, and then also tells on everyone else who was there. Later in the episode, this apparently never happened.
Well, we don't know that for sure. Like, it could have happened. It's just hard to know. Which I'll use my favorite line. It's unclear which of these things is part of the dream or not. So basically, the Gene shows up and he's like, "Hey, the FBI is going to come down to town. They think that Fred may have actually been responsible for a bunch of other killings all over the state. They're going to try to like tie some evidence to those, and they're going to help us look for him because up to this point, apparently Freddy is missing. But no one knows that he is dead except for the group that was there." And then without like even a slightest bit of prompting, Tim is like, "Well, we killed him. We did it. It was me. I threw the match and I'm responsible." And,
here's a written list of everybody who was there.
That's right. He just gives up everyone so quickly. And Gene is like, "Nah, no big deal. It's fine."
Gene's reaction to everything in the entire episode, no matter what it is, and even if it's inconsistent, is, "Nah, don't worry about it.
I'll cover up the crime and I'll go get rid of the body. You're a hero," which is probably the most realistic cop thing in the episode.
I mean, I'm sure every day they walk into their precinct and go and just say to each other, "You're a hero."
Well, I meant also the offer to move a body and cover up a crime.
The body cam just stopped working. The body cams hate crime. They can sense it coming and they just turn it off themselves. They go, "Oh no, crime's coming. So I'm gonna turn myself off."
So that's what the show got right, because absolutely this is how a cop situation would work. And this is when we first get the whole like tooth gag running through the show, and this is pretty close to the end of the episode, so it kind of comes out of nowhere. But Tim it gets on his radio in his cop car, and he like bangs it against his teeth and causes them to start bleeding. And this is when he learns that they have found a body at the refinery, but that it's not Freddy's body. So Tim is obviously very concerned. He doesn't know whose body it is, but also he wants to make sure that Freddy's body is gone. Gene takes him to a car in a junkyard where he took Freddy's body and welded it shut. There should be like ashes or something in this trunk. There's like no signs of anybody being in there. There's no blood. There's no like burnt skin or anything. Like, and also Gene must be incredibly strong to move a burned dead body to a junkyard. But they open up the trunk, and of course there's nothing inside. There's scratch marks all over the inside of the trunk.
But this apparently did not happen.
But this didn't happen. Like, at least I don't think so, because later Gene says that they went to the car and they saw that it was welded shut, and that was it.
Right. And like he also says, like, whoever talked about FBI.
Yes. And then later towards the end, we find out that apparently the FBI wasn't coming, but Tim thought they were because Gene told him they were, in maybe a dream.
Because that is when he saw the burning note.
So maybe that all was a dream.
but it's not clear.
But
it's unclear.
It is very unclear. So they go into the refinery and they see that it was William Frank Father Deeks, whose body is in the refinery.
I like that he went after Deeks first.
Yes, he has big scratches all over his chest. The guy who
like Fred's like, I really hate Tim, and Tim is the one who killed me, and I want to kill his daughter still. But fucking Deeks
had a shotgun on me for like 2 minutes, so I'm really mad at him. He's gonna die first. And then this is when we get the horniest scene, which maybe is a dream, maybe isn't. Hard to say. I was fully expecting Sarah, his wife, to turn into Freddy at this point because
it's so like early in the episode she has no character, but she's very like just all she's concerned about was the crime. Why did they move there? I managed you. Let's move back. Like that's her entire character.
Yeah.
And then second scene, she's like in her nightgown and she's just like rubbing him all over. And you're like, this seems a little weird. Is this supposed to be horny? And this scene, he wakes up. He's got his chipped tooth. He's scratched cheek. He's losing his mind. He basically tells her, I'm losing my mind. And like, I killed a man. And she's like, she basically starts rubbing him all over and says, you need a distraction basically. And then kisses down his body and clearly gives him a blowjob.
Yeah.
There's no other way to take this. It is literally
well,
that.
Okay. You went too fast though, because he's taking some medication and drinking a beer in his bed. And
we've all done that.
Well, yes, of course we have. I'm going to do that tonight after we finish recording. And
that's what I call dinner.
Dinner of champions. I have a Coors banquet beer and a handful of pills.
Just like a lot of Soma and a lot of Coca-Cola. It'll fizz up in my belly.
So his wife comes in. She's wearing a nightgown. She's clearly hot for him, as we already alluded to. He tries to drink the beer, and this is the second time that he bangs his teeth, and he gets so angry that he throws his beer across the bedroom, so it just spills all over this bedroom carpet. And that's going to just linger. That's going to be hard to get out. It's going to smell in your room forever because of that. It's
just going to have hops everywhere.
Yeah, it's gross. I mean, he should know better than that. But anyway, he throws it on the ground and she starts kissing him. He pushes him down onto the bed. She starts kissing down his body. And she's like, you're an honest cop and no one will arrest you. And then clearly starts to give him a blowjob. And it was like, this is the point where I thought we're going to hear Freddy's voice take over. Like he's going to go like, oh boy, look what you've got for me, bitch. Or whatever.
He's like, fresh meat.
That's even better. And it's just so alarming to see this and not know if this is supposed to be a dream. Because in from what I recall, you sort of like, yes, at first you're not sure if it's a dream or not, but it kind of switches pretty quickly or something weird happens. You're like, okay, I'm in a dream now.
And then he does switch into the dream world.
And yes, exactly. That's the weird part, is that like he then jumps into a dream. So clearly this part is supposed to be real. So his wife is just trying to blow him to make him feel better.
And I guess he falls asleep.
I guess.
Immediately?
Like, I mean, yeah, maybe
he did take those pills.
That's true. He takes the pills and then has been drinking and then just immediately is out.
She doesn't need him. Like, doesn't need him to be awake.
I guess not. But he fades into a dream where he is standing in a jail, and he's being walked to the execution chamber. And they open the door, and his daughters are standing on either side of what looks like a dentist chair, but with the electric chair like head clamp thing that would electrocute you.
And by the way, now the theme of him dying is dentist.
Yes, it's now fully dentist because he's hit his teeth twice, and now we've seen the dental chair. It has
nothing to do with who he is or what he does or how he killed anybody. It's just now it's dentist.
It's so weird that they didn't try to like work something in the first segment, but it was Freddy's nightmare, so maybe Freddy didn't know about his dental issue.
But like also
you do get a close up of Freddy's nasty ass teeth, but right before he gets set on fire. So maybe that was maybe that was Tim seeing that and going, ooh, I don't like that. And then like Freddy using that to to attack him in his dreams later.
It feels like there was a different episode that had a dentist theme, because you could do an entire like one of their little half episodes.
Dentists are scary. Tooth trauma is scary.
And it's the most obvious thing for Freddy to do in an episode where it was all about teeth.
That is a thing that I had a dream about once. Like a lot of people will say that like, oh, that tooth trauma is a thing that happens.
Yeah, your teeth falling out because you in your dream, like you're eating something and your teeth come out.
I'll tell you a couple of them. I've had several teeth dreams.
I've actually broken a tooth, so like reality sucks.
Yes, I've had several tooth dreams in the past. One of them was tripping in there was a particular store, like a department store in our mall when I was a kid, and they had these very particular clothing racks that were tall and metal, and they like angled downward so that like you had these little like these little round round balls on the top row of the top part of the clothing rack, so that the hangers could stick on those little things and not slide all the way down. And I had this like irrational fear, not necessarily a dream, but an irrational fear that I was going to trip and somehow my mouth was going to hit one of those like balls and break all of my teeth out. So that was in the back of my mind. I also had a dream once where my gums turned to liquid and my teeth fell out.
No,
which is disgusting. Like they turned to like not fully liquid, but like soft gelatin, and they just kind of like fell out of my face.
And that's the end of this episode.
Scarier than anything that was in this episode. And then the last one was that like my teeth, you know how in cartoons, I feel like I've told you this story before, but in cartoons where like a character, like you would see a beaver or you would see someone like cutting wood and they would scrape their teeth across the wood and like the wood would like curl out as it got like scraped away. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
My teeth were like curling up like that wood thing. No. So
tune in next week when we talk about eye trauma.
Yeah, you're not a fan of eye trauma, right?
Excuse me, is there anyone out here listening who are fans of eye trauma? Like that is they are not just like are okay with it.
Not the right phrasing. I'm sorry to say. Yeah, definitely not. I wouldn't say that I'm a fan of eye trauma.
I heard eye trauma. Let's sell that T-shirt on our podcast store.
Oh yeah, that's we'll sell a ton of those. I could make that though. That would be a very funny.
I would not wear it.
A very very funny shirt. But anyway, so he's got some teeth trauma issues. And
all of a sudden, it's the most important part of his personality.
Yeah, he's having breakfast the next morning with his daughters and Merritt. He learns from Lisa that Merritt sometimes talks in her sleep about her interaction with Freddy, and she hasn't really been talking all that much, but she does say like, he told me you killed him. And this leads to Tim crushing his coffee mug in his hands. It just breaks into 1,000 pieces. Yes, it's so funny because it happens so suddenly. He just smashes it, and he starts to lose his mind. I think earlier in the episode when he's dropping them off at school, Merritt also kind of has like a weird, Freddy thing, like "I'm coming for you, Dad" or whatever she says. So it's happened a couple times, but he's starting to lose his mind a little bit. He wants to go back to New York. He's like, I'm going to go to a meeting with the townspeople and tell them, that we need to stick together or to move out of town or whatever. And I guess we're supposed to assume that like Nancy's mom is also in this group of people. Like I believe, like we're supposed to, like from the original film, I guess she's in here somewhere too. But
Tim's the most important part of the first movie.
That's right. Yes, Lieutenant Tim. I don't remember if they ever mention him in the film or not.
It's in the subtext.
That's sure. I'll rewatch the first one and I'll see if they mention Lieutenant Tim Blocker. because like her dad is a police officer, right? Like
don't worry about it. This is his story.
That's true. Fair. I'm just trying to like tie them all together. I'm doing the thing of like, well, if this happened then this must have happened. But anyway, so he goes to the dentist office. The doctor was one of the people who was in the mob, and he's trying to tell him to like get out of town, but he notices like, hey, your tooth is broken. And this is when I wondered if they hired this actor only because he had like a broken tooth he could take out or something. And they were like, perfect, you've got it, you're hired. But he's like, let me just fix this really quick and it'll be fine. And so he goes into the room. Jean shows up randomly and he's like, hey, Sarah told me you were here. She said you're freaking out and you want to move away. And then this is when he lays out that like the FBI's not coming. The body is still in the trunk as far as he knows, and everything is fine. And it's like, okay, I don't know what's real and what isn't. It doesn't really matter though, because then the nurse comes in and starts to put him under gas. And
what happened here though? something very necessary to the plot.
Well, yeah, something very necessary to the plot in that as he's getting the gas, Tim looks up and he sees the dental hygienist in her underwear
for a good minute,
and she's just standing there in her underwear, and he's like, this gas can make me see through your clothes. And she's like, yeah, it does that. And I'm like, does it? And then she gives him like sodium pentothal, which I think is like the quote truth serum.
Apparently this part is all real because I don't know, at some point she is doing this to him in the real world. Like some of this.
Let's see. Let me look up the uses of sodium thiopentol.
5 hours of Josh looking up something later. You'll see what other movies sodium pentothol's in.
Shut up. This is part of our show. The people who listen, they love it. If you love it, you better tell us that you love it. There's only a few people who will actually do that, but they'll it's like it used to be used in place of propofol. So like before propofol like became more widespread.
Does it say it's used by dentists?
It's well known in popular culture under the name sodium pentothal as a truth serum, although the efficacy in this role has been questioned.
Like almost everything that the cops said were true.
That's true. That's true. I don't see. See this now. This is good information. So shut up by me looking this up.
It started an episode of Nightman.
It was the first of 3 drugs administered during most lethal injections.
Oh, so it's supposed to make you think of the chair earlier.
Maybe, but that doesn't make any sense either, because why would they show an electric chair if he's getting a lethal injection dose?
When he dies, does she say was it a reaction to the gas or the?
I think she says the gas.
Okay,
but I don't remember. It doesn't seem like it was ever used in dentistry. So
why did Freddy let him see her underwear first?
I don't know. I mean, I guess
because she doesn't turn into Freddy. Freddy just shows
now
up.
That would be something if she were in her underwear and then suddenly she's Freddy, but also in her underwear. Like right, that would be fine. I'd be fine.
But
with
he's not. She like does it. She leaves, and then he comes in.
Yeah, I don't know. So like he starts counting down from 10, and then we get to I don't remember what number we get to, but then Freddy starts doing his rhyme. And
yeah, which would make sense if he fell asleep here.
Yes,
from it. But that would also suggest that she gave him the truth serum for some reason for his tooth cap. Which was only going to take 5 minutes.
Yeah, I don't know. But then Freddy shows up and he's like, oh, all those teeth, they'll all have to go. And his fingers have dental drills on them, which looks pretty gnarly. And then he's like, tell me when it doesn't hurt. And so he starts drilling into this guy's mouth. And it's a pretty tame thing, except they do show a couple of close-ups of his like chest getting splattered with blood and tooth chunks, which was pretty gross. And I was like, wow, they really went for it there. And
then they come back to him in the real world. And he just has a little bit of blood coming out of
yeah,
his
he just has
mouth.
like a little bit of blood coming out of his mouth. So it's like, what happened? Did he like bite
like
his...
sometimes in the, if I remember correctly, you'll have to report back in after your marathon watch.
Yeah.
Sometimes what he's doing to them in the dream world is happening to them in real life.
Well, yeah, because you have the amazing scene in the first one where the person's getting like pulled around the room and blood's going everywhere, and like
their chest opens up from his claws in the real world.
Yeah, and like Johnny Depp gets pulled into like the bed, and all the blood shoots out, and everybody sees that. So like,
but sometimes I believe there are some times where they just seem to die to people in the real world. With like, they got
like
scared,
had a heart attack or something, or they died in their sleep or whatever.
Like whatever the situation requires the other people, outside people, to not believe them or something.
Yeah, and so we cut back. We see that he's just bleeding from the mouth. He's dead. That they run in and they're like, "Oh no, what happened?" And then as we kind of pull away from that, the door closes and we're inside Freddy's like
nightmare
dream chamber, wherever he is.
The place that England films 90% of this show.
Yes, this little spot where he's always just hanging out. Fun lit set with all these weird angles and whatnot. And then Freddy's like, "Sweet dreams. Who's next?" And I don't know who he's talking to, but he's like, "You, or maybe you." And I was like, "Oh, is he talking to the audience?" And then he turns around and he's like, "Or how about one of you?" So like the last one is clearly the audience. So who are the first two people he's talking to?
Can you imagine being the person who's so scared of everything that when he did that part, they're like, "Me!"
He's talking about me.
Was this a real TV show? But like, and then Tony Danza's at home. He's like, "He can't be talking about me. He didn't say Tony." But like, you would think from the setup, like the rest of the show is him going after the rest of the people who are in that courthouse or whatever.
Yeah,
it's not.
No, it's not. I mean,
he got Tim and he got Deet, and that's and Lou, and that's it. That's all he needs.
And then obviously the movie happens.
Yes, and there is a sequel episode.
Yes, there is. Later on in season 1, there is an episode called Sister's Keeper, and it is about the twin daughters.
That was my favorite British EDM act from 1992.
And so they have to deal with Freddy being in their dreams. Spoiler alert, we may cover that one before the end of the spooky season. We will see if we get to it, but we will definitely be back to cover more of Freddy's Nightmares. I mean, I think at one time we considered just only covering Freddy's Nightmares, but we kind of felt like that would be
too scary.
It would be too scary. Obviously, this show is too scary for Tubi. It's moved off of Tubi. It's on Plex now. So if you want to watch it, you'll have to go over to Plex TV.
It still feels like a viable idea. Like
yes.
Every episode is interesting sounding, except for the ones that fat shame.
True. This is a show that we will probably revisit for as long as we podcast together. And if we get to a point where we're like, hey, we're probably, going to take a very long extended break and not have a regular show, then we might just try to like knock out all the Freddy's Nightmare episodes before we do that, so that,
or you can pay us $1,000.
Yes, $1,000. And we'll do it. Yeah, pay us. We'll set our terms like the Price Master, an exorbitant amount of money, and if you really want it bad enough, you will.
Yeah, find Josh on Threads, DM or Blue Sky, DM him with your ransom money to make us watch.
That's right, all of Freddy's Nightmares. But yes, this is a show that I think we will constantly come back to, because even though this episode was maybe not as good, we felt like we should at least see the pilot. We should see kind of where it goes, where it started, and then we can kind of pick up where we left off, because I think
I like that we did the other ones first and then this, because I'm excited, because like the other ones are fun.
Yes.
This one's okay, but like you could see like what they were selling to people in that first episode isn't what it was at all.
No, because
which is kind of fun.
I think the first one that we covered was the season finale of season 1, Safe Sex. That episode was a couple of years ago, so go back in the feed and you can find it. And that episode was super fun because it's very silly. and like really over the top, and it had a good Robert Englund performance. Freddy was quipping and doing funny things and cutting in, and it was great. So I think that there's a ton of fun episodes. I think we've had fun with all of them. This one maybe the least of all of them, but I think that I'm still excited to cover this show more in the future. But before we wrap it up, we have to put it onto our scale of spookiness. And I'll go first. I will say that like this is not the height that this show can achieve. So I'm going to just go with 5 because like it wasn't bad. I wasn't bored. There was plenty of funny stuff to watch. There's plenty of fun things to see in it and fun stuff to talk about, but it's not what the show can be. So I think 5 is like a good baseline.
Same 5 here. Not like the story is whatever. It's you had to do it was a smart thing to do for the first episode for the series.
Yes.
But also the little touches are so fucking weird.
Yes.
And that's what this show actually is. Like if you actually watch some of the other ones, like every little touch you'll go, wait, why did they pick that choice? Yes. And that's the magic of this show is like it's just like whatever idea was thrown at the board, someone went, sure, let's do it. And even it doesn't make sense within the episode or one scene later. And all the little titillating parts in this, which are, kind of shitty, but also like you're like, why would you do that? Where did that come from? Like this show was like not horny in the slightest, like for 45 minutes. And then it's like, there's 2 horny scenes at the end. Like really horny scenes, like for TV, even syndication at that time, shockingly horny.
Yeah.
So
I will say that it got that extra. It went from a 4 to 5 because of the extra horny wife out of nowhere.
Yeah. So like, I'll give them that. I will give them up to 5, and I have a great love for this show in general. So that also helps.
Yeah, no, it's great. And I'm excited about the rest of the spooky season. We don't know exactly what all we have planned to cover over the rest of the month, but probably some favorites, maybe something new. We'll see. But you'll just have to tune in to find out if you are curious. But until next time, I've been Spooky Josh.
I've been regular Skinner. It's not close enough to Halloween yet.
It's October. It is Halloween, my friend.
Well, I haven't got my full spook on yet.
Well, you better get to it. Be spookified by the next time we record.
I'll do my best.
All right. And until next time, stay spooky. You've been listening to Center of Weirdness. If you like the show, rate and review us wherever you find us, but especially on Apple Podcasts. You can listen to every episode at centerofweird.com, where you can also find all the old Predictocast episodes. And if you want to get in touch with us to tell us about a show we should cover, hit us up on Instagram or Threads at Weirdness Podcast. And as always, thanks for listening.